Hello and welcome to From the Be All End, and we're holding our debrief after the 1-1 draw at Brighton and Hove Albion on Saturday. I'm Simon Evans and joined by Chris Bowden, Justin Connolly and Paul Woodhouse. I'm actually in the same house as Paul Woodhouse in Cleveland because we were in Ohio together this weekend watching the MLS Cup. We'll chat a little bit about that at the end. But yeah, down to business. Burnley at Brighton. And Justin, that's a result that... it's a kind of result at the start of the season you'd look at and go, be nice to get a point at Brighton, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think the result, it was all important in that game. I think there's a few key points about it, isn't there? The fact that we were under quite a lot of pressure in that second half and, conceded an equaliser, but then we didn't buckle, did we? We kept, we held on for a point. I think it's a really, really... sort of good benchmark to set against what was a very, very good side. We've got that resilience now that we didn't seem to have before. I think probably like everybody else, I was expecting them to get another one towards the end there. And I think psychologically that would have been a massive blow to come away from that game without anything. And to get a point, given that the results around us didn't necessarily go our way, I think it's really, really important. And let's be honest, they are a decent side. They're 8th in the table at the moment, and we again, particularly in the first half, we gave them a game, didn't we?
Absolutely. I mean, Woody, you watched that game in detail and had quite a few opinions about it. You were saying towards the end of the game, you thought there was a touch of the sort of dashes about Burnley's performance.
Yeah, and not just because we kept them at bay. We did what we had to do. There were a lot of good things about yesterday's performance. We started off extremely well. That first 10, 15 minutes, Odebear was all over them. We were outpassing them. We were infinitely quicker than they were. And Brighton weren't at the races. And then they suddenly realised they had to play a game of football. And they slowly started to ratchet it up during the first half. And if anybody was going to score, it was going to be them. Obviously, we nicked that goal. The second half was a slightly different story. But credit to Vincent. We've given him a lot of stick on this pod, and a lot of other people have as well, online, for being too passive, letting games drift, etc. But we've also got to remember we wound up with 2 right-backs, 3 centre halves, and Nathan Redmond up front. Now that's going super dash. But to be fair, they didn't get it under each other's feet like you sometimes see when you start bringing defenders on just to shore up a point. And we sorted out extremely well. So I think a lot of people can take a lot of credit out of yesterday's win. It's not spawning a point. I think we earned that, definitely. We played some jolly good stuff. We dug in, and everybody did the jobs, including the manager, as far as I'm concerned.
There was nearly a Nathan Redmond assist to Connor Roberts, weren't there? That would have been quite a tale of substitutes there. Yeah.
But Chris, that was the best chance in the second half. Better than anything like Brighton created was that Connor Roberts chance. That's all I'll say.
What a pass that was, by the way. He's sort of dissected 3 or 4 defenders, and the run as well. I'd love to see from he's playing right wing effectively yesterday, but to show that sort of desire, he burst infield and he's demanding it. I want this ball. I want to score a goal, and he can't quite get on the end of it. It's just heartbreaking, but that's great. It's from a lad who's no doubt had a few sleepless nights this week with his second child's been born. So every credit to him. Fabulous.
If only we had Vout.
Well, he had his best game at Brighton, didn't he, last time out?
Exactly.
He was terrific. But Burnley usually, it's one of those grounds where have always picked up results. They've lost the odd one or two, but invariably picked up results. I mean, latterly under Sean, it was sort of like backs to the wall, grinding out a nil apiece. And before that, it was a shock result, wasn't it? When they gave Burnley a bit of a shot in the arm in the last relegation season. But it's the only thing that drags yesterday's result down is, say when you're leading in a game so deep into the game on the back of Tuesday night at Wolves. If they'd have got a point at Wolves and got a point yesterday after beating Sheffield, everyone's like, what a fabulous week that is. And the Wolves results just put a dampener on everything, really. But
yeah, but I think it was an encouraging one in the sense, that point that you made, Justin, about not folding after that. They came under a lot of pressure in that last 15 minutes, didn't they? And they really were, whipping balls in. The goal that was conceded was the kind of goal we used to give away under Dyche, where we defend, we're going deeper and deeper, and then there's a ball to the back post, and there, if somebody just gets half a yard, they could to get an header, and you're in trouble, aren't you? But it was getting deeper and deeper. I mean, the big talking point for a lot of people, especially online, I've seen like a lot of reaction, was James Trafford's performance. Woody, I mean, he made a lot of saves at the end, didn't he? He's been talked about as man of the match and so on. What were your impressions of Trafford's display?
It was a very good performance, but as we've all mentioned, of all the saves, there's maybe one borderline worldie, but had he missed any of those, we'd have been going absolutely apeshit today about him. And it wasn't some kind of Tom Eaton-esque performance. He did extremely well, but when you're kind of showing a very simple catch on the official Twitter feed of all his so-called saves, then you're starting to pad it a little bit. But he had a good game. He'll come out of it feeling better because of it. I think his distribution, whilst we're always going to talk about it not being as good as X, Y, Z, it was still decent and improving. I thought he commanded his 6-yard box and his area arguably a bit better than he has done, coming out for stuff, and even his punching was still slightly dubious, but he was getting there and trying to command things a lot better. So I think all round he did well, and I think he'll be very happy with it. I think the side will be very happy with it, and he comes away with a lot of credit.
Yeah, I mean, keepers need games like that, don't they? I mean, I take that point that a lot of those saves you would expect a keeper to make, and I'm glad he's made them. A couple of really good ones in there as well, I thought. But it's for a keeper who's been questioned a little bit, and people are looking at him thinking, is he worth all that money? Is he really as good as we've all been thinking, is he really as good as people made out, sort of thing. He looked solid enough. Justin?
Yeah, I agree. I think he looked very solid. But like everybody else, he's just doing the things you expect a keeper to do. I think there's been a little bit of overreaction to how well he did. It wasn't like a world-class performance, was it? It was just sort of doing the job that he's supposed to do. And perhaps, the misgivings that people have had about him have resulted in people sort of overreacting to a decent performance just out of relief, really, that actually he is reasonably solid. I think people have been a bit unfairly critical of him in the sense that I don't think he's made any sort of massive gaffes at any point. He hasn't, cost us a goal as far as I can remember. It's just that general suspicion that he might be a little bit fragile and a little bit, awkward with his distribution. But, like as Woody says, it's a confidence building performance. He'll come out of it feeling a lot better, and hopefully that confidence will spread through the rest of the team. There's nothing worse than having a dodgy keeper that the defence doesn't have faith in, and I think that will, give us a little bit more faith in him, and that's what we need. It's all progress, isn't it? It's all a sign that things are improving.
I was just going to say, to take the Greavesy role, he's not with us today, but to take the Greavesy role, Chris, it's like the whole thing has been give them time, it'll start coming together. And I think maybe that does explain a bit why people are almost euphoric that Trafford had a decent and a good game, because it is another sign that maybe things are coming together. Yeah, defensively, we ground out a game. Really, in the end.
He's had an afternoon where without him, Burnley lose the game. I'd say I do agree. I think if he doesn't make the vast majority of those saves, you're pointing the finger. But there's a really good save from Mitoma where he shoots into the ground and it's awkward, and he's done really well to sort of scoop it over the angle. And the star save at the far post, like Peter Schmeichel-esque, he gets out really quickly. He's really sort of, he's made his mind up, no hesitancy, and he spread himself superbly well. But it's great for the lad himself. And like I say, it's a sign that some players and the team as a whole are getting used to what is the Premier League experience. But it's nice to sort of, I'll be honest, I hadn't seen the kid Verbruggen before he went to Brighton. I'm slightly disappointed he hadn't come to Burnley because of how speaking to other the Belgian journalists who were sort of, a lot of people thought he was Man United should have signed him. They think he's got that higher ceiling. And yesterday, if you'd have compared the two, you'd have thought James Trafford is the better goalkeeper. So that's again, it's another tick in his column yesterday. He can feel very very good about himself this week.
He didn't have a lot to do in the second half, though. To be fair, didn't Verbruggen? He was quiet.
Yeah, I mean the other interesting thing with the team lineup was obviously Koleosho missing for the first time after picking up that knock at Wolves. Kompany went with Wilson Odobert. Woody obviously got the goal. He came in, scored the goal. Other than the goal, what were your impressions of him in that? It was kind of a like for like sort of switch, wasn't it? Really.
Pretty much, yes. The first 15, especially, he ran them ragged. And the thing that he has over Koleosho is his feet. It sticks to his feet, which in a modern day player is quite rare, isn't it? Koleosho's fantastic at kind of getting his head down, going inside, outside, but almost bundling the defender out of the way. Whereas Odobert is all about fancy footwork at pace, and I think he could be a ridiculously good player. But he again is I think he's in the earlier season Amdouni mold where he seems to disappear for longish periods, and then all of a sudden he pops up again and is there on the highlights reel. But there were some bits that were simply exquisite, and if we see more of that out of him, then we'll have another Benson versus Zaruri debate all for the rest of the year.
He was working quite well in defence as well, wasn't he? Tracking back and he worked really hard. Even in the second half when he didn't get much going forward, he was doing that thing that Koleosho does it as well. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but you need that. You need that, especially in that second half where they're getting a grip of the game a little bit more than they had in the first half. Brighton and really work. That was the thing in that second half. The work rate and the concentration was excellent, wasn't it? It was really on a par with the best that we can do. I think it always annoys me a little bit when you have a performance like that where we've got our backs against the wall a little bit in the second half. Keeper makes some good saves, and people say, "Oh, we got battered there." The keeper had a man of the match performance for you, and we were defending all the time. They talk as if like goalkeeping and defending isn't like part of football, but it's just as valuable as anything else, isn't it? It's just as much a part of the game as the stuff going forward. And any team is going to have to dig in and produce, that sort of display if they want to win games in the Premier League, particularly when you're at the bottom end of the table like we are. We're going to have to do that again, and it's really encouraging. I think that we're put under that kind of pressure, and we didn't really buckle.
And on that point about defenders in front of Trafford, etc., I think a special shout out for Vitinho, who arguably had his best game yesterday.
Absolutely, he's getting better every game.
Yeah, he was fantastic going forwards. I mean, Mitoma looks like he's got a lot of change out of him, but he's basically kept him to those kind of floaty inner type wide crosses. And he played extremely well, did Vitinho yesterday. And it's kind of discrediting him a little bit by putting all the praise onto Trafford. Vitinho was great, as was O'Shea as well. He put a lot of very good blocks in.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that O'Shea started and we didn't see Ekdal Bayer together. I mean, Chris, but O'Shea recently, after he had some poor games, let's be honest, and he seems to have come through that a little bit, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's just the balance Vincent wants, that he wants, someone who's confident in bringing the ball out from the back, and if Bayer's fit, Bayer's going to play. If Bayer's not available or suspended, as he was in midweek, he plays Ekdal. Maybe he doesn't want two of that type. He wants, the ball winner as such, and O'Shea, who's he'll let it kick it all day long, and the one who comes out from the back. But he has shown signs of improvement. The only area was at Wolves on Tuesday night where his ball into Sander Berge was a hospital pass. His three old gold shirts bearing down on him and a fourth in close proximity. It was just a silly, especially at that stage of the game. But he'd come off the back of that performance against Sheffield United, but he must have felt encouraged, albeit against what we consider a poor side. But that's it. The Vitinho again. I mean, complete agreement. You're looking at floaty is exactly the word for Mitsoma's crossing. It was coming inside on his right, and he's just standing a ball up. Basically, it wasn't like he'd got in behind him and he was sort of pulling a pullback for someone to tap in or anything like that. He was taking a chance with a cross, and Charlie Taylor's got caught out in the end. But all round that's it. But your heart sinks when the equaliser goes in. You're thinking West Ham, here we go again. But resilience the word, isn't it? It can only make everyone at Turf Moor feel a lot better this week. But again, have to build on it.
And it does go back to that thing we were talking about the other week about, even though Kompany keeps repeating this mantra to the media that we're not going to change the way we play, we're sticking to our principles, we've got our style of play. And more and more with each game, you start to think that the way we're playing does reflect an adjustment and a I said to Woody in the car as we were driving up from Columbus, it's a little bit like the expression that comes from politics, like we've been mugged by reality a little bit. That like we've come to terms with it, and we are playing a different. I mean, we were hoofing the ball away at the end under pressure, as we should. I mean, when it's not totally 100%. Commentators keep talking about it as though we're still trying to play the same way as we did at the start of the season. But Justin, there has been quite a lot of change, hasn't there, in the approach?
Well, I think if you look at how we played against City in that first game of the season, we're playing at home against the treble winners, and we play like five up front and try and out press them. We're not doing that now, are we? We're not. There were games where we were playing five up front and early on in the season, and then getting caught on the break all the time because we had that high press going on. We're definitely not doing that now. We've got a totally different formation. We've got that sort of. It's more like, what would you say it is, like 4-4-1-1 or 4-4. It's almost like 4-4-2, isn't it? With like a diamond midfield and the.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it.
It's completely different to what we were doing, and we are still trying to play it out from the back and keep possession. But you look at the stats for Saturday's game, and we were, I think it was 70+% possession for Brighton. Now that's not the game plan that we had early on in the season, is it? That's not what we were trying to do then. But yeah, and I think it's probably right. It's an adjustment based on the realities of life in the Premier League with a very, very young side, the youngest side on average in the division, with a lot of players who've never played, Premier League football before. It's common sense, isn't it? And we seem to have hit upon a sort of way of playing that is both, very, very compact and stable and difficult to play against, much more difficult to score goals against than we were in the first sort of 6-7 games.
Definitely.
Much more difficult to play against, but we still seem to be able to get forward and create chances. We've in the last few games we've scored some great goals. So yeah, it's definitely changed. There's more variety as well in managing games, in changing while we're playing. The sort of formation doesn't change that much. The personnel changes quite often, but the style of play is totally transformed from what we were doing earlier on in the season, and it's more pragmatic and it's more. It gives us a chance to get points, which is that's reflected in the results, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Woody, anything catching your eye about what's changed? Anything you look at and think we weren't doing that in the first 4 or 5 games of the season?
I think that kind of ball from back to front, we're finding more options. We're finding either Jay to lay it off, being able to hit it short to Berger. He's able to hit that kind of reverse blind pass, as you will, or the Zamdouni. So there's more kind of choice between that, and it's not as choreographed, or it doesn't feel as choreographed. Like I say, that first 15, Brighton didn't know what day it was. We were all over them. We're playing long triangles, short triangles. We're passing, we're moving, we're doing all manner of nonsense, and we looked more like Brighton, way more like Brighton than Brighton did. So it was impressive, and it's getting better. And you can see there's a certain familiarity as people get more confidence in their roles and things pulling off. And yeah, I agree with Justin. Everything seems to be coming together a little bit more.
Rhodes, what's still missing, to get to a level where we start winning games like that, or really start climbing out of trouble? It has changed. I think the lads are right about that. But what do you think's missing still?
It's a simple thing, isn't it? I always refer to him, but he always spoke so much common sense, our previous manager. And he'll say it's those little details, taking your chances. Like at Wolves on Tuesday night, J-Rod scores, or Brownhill scores, and you go 1-0 up, not so far from half time, and it's a different game. And then you give away a stupid goal, and all of a sudden you're going in trailing when you don't deserve to. Like I say, yesterday, they crafted a lovely goal, and can they nick another? Can they keep Brighton out? Just those little. If Charlie Taylor can make another step, he wins that. Wins that aerial challenge. It's just little bits and pieces. But like I say, they got almost. From that City game where they basically played with a back five and nobody knew what on earth what was going on, to then trying to take on elite sides with what was essentially a front five. He just got the balance better, hasn't he? You got Berger, who many were saying could play in a more defensive role, is sort of dictating things at the base of the diamond. Brownhill, who has always been better off, as a more forward-minded player for me. Whether that that shows up in his goals or his assists, I just think he's better sort of breaking up play in that area. And certainly in the Championship, he's a 5-goal minimum at man a season. He should be chipping in with more like he did last week. But they still got that threat. You've got individual brilliance like Odebear yesterday. Trezor, who came on and looks more more like he's getting the hang of things with every sort of cameo he gets. Sort of right hand side's more tied down with a bit more of a workman-like player, if you will, in JBG or JBL. And so we're all desperate to sort of see Benson get back fully fit and firing and see what he can offer. And and Zarori before he's the mystery, isn't he? Still like sort of 5th, 6th choice in that area, but at least there is that depth. Like I say, you lose Koleosho, and then we play another really exciting young talent. And, you know, you want to change the game and you bring on a Redmond or a Trésor, and the depth's there. It's just, like I say, just getting used to the Premier League experience and making sense of it. And I say, just desperately, if you could do what like Everton have done this week, you know, pick up, have a week like that, you change your entire season's fortunes around.
Yeah, it's interesting that Kompany isn't, like, we all agree that it has changed, and the evidence is in front of every Burnley fan's eyes that it's changed. But it's interesting that Kompany still, he won't talk about that. I just wonder how much of that is like his image as a, you know, the progressive coach, the guy who's playing the right way and all this kind of thing. Do you think he sort of thinks if he starts saying, yeah, we've become a bit more pragmatic now and acknowledges that sort of downgrades his exciting new young manager image?
See, I think it's just the balance. Honestly, while he still, you know, they still take risks at the back. They still try and be, you know, they're trying to find space, you know, wherever they can. They try and move the ball quickly when they can. They say they've got this individual brilliance at times. You know, it's that aspect of it's still there, but I say it's just tightened up a couple of aspects here and there, and you can't go and take these sides on with, you know, 2 wide players, 2 forwards, and a 10. You know, so it's just it's madness.
Yeah. I think we can all see what's happened, and it's good. It's good. I mean, coming up, obviously, in our next episode on Friday, we'll look in detail at the Everton game. But just as a little appetizer for that, I mean, it's an intriguing one, isn't it? With Dyche up against Burnley. I mean, Justin, there's always this thought, isn't there? Like, you know, what kind of reception they'll get and so on. What do you think it's going to be like?
Well, he'll get a sensational reception, of course, won't he? He's a hero to many, and quite rightly so. I think it's going to be a much tougher game than it might have been a month ago. I think the 10-point deduction seems to have sort of galvanised a lot of people, both on the terraces, on the pitch, and in the dugout. They're very good, aren't they, at playing on this sense of sort of injustice and using that as a fuel to heighten the performances. I mean, looking at their form at the moment, they've won 3 on the bounce now, which is, you know, for them, that's like, you know, a real turnaround. And you've got to acknowledge that without that 10-point deduction, which the players on the pitch and the management team at the moment don't deserve, without that 10-point deduction, they'd be in the top half of the table. So, you know, it's going to be another tough game for us. But I think Sean Dyche should and will get a fabulous reception.
You think so, Chris, or do you think?
I think it'd be like the League Cup game. I think there might be a bit of follow on from, you know, Dwight McNeil getting a bit of stick and giving a bit back, and you know, which is a crying shame because he loves the club and he you know what a find he was and what a player they developed. And I sincerely hope he continues this current vein of form and starts knocking on the England door, because I think he's that good.
Not on Saturday, though, please. Not on
Saturday, but you know, Tarky, you know, great servant as well. You know, one of the best centre backs we've seen at the football club in 40 odd years. And the manager, I can't speak highly enough of him. He is sort of the godfather of the modern Burnley Football Club, and you know, everything is built upon, you know, his success, his framework, his remodeling of everything. You know, he's we talk about sort of getting pigeonholed in styles, and I think he was, you know, they were abrasive at times and they were a tough watch, but I think they also played a lot of bloody good football. You don't go to Chelsea and win, and Anfield and win, and Old Trafford and win, and Wembley and nick a point and finish 7th and blah 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 just by being, you know, really abrasive all the time. But he deserves from all 4 ends. I think the Everton fans, and I think there are a few doubters among them, I think they're now saying,
definitely.
We've got a proper bloody manager here. Absolutely. He could be, as good a manager as they've had in the last 30, 40 years, Sean. And I sincerely hope he, that football club should be winning pots. And I sincerely hope he's one of them who starts putting pots on the table for him.
Yeah, me too. I also hope, like you mentioned, the Dwight McNeil thing, maybe, some carryover of that. I really hope there isn't, actually. I hope there's a correction of that. I really hope that the people at Turf Moor give him a good reception, because he was a breath of fresh air when he came into that team at exactly the right moment, wasn't he? That West Ham game when he came, really, I know he played a few games before that, but it was that game where things turned around that season with Dwight coming into the team. And I really liked him. It didn't end well form-wise for him, but he always seemed a good lad who gave his all and everything. He didn't deserve that stick he got at Everton, and I hope that gets corrected.
And why it was inexplicable. I was there at Goodison Park that night. It was just, and they started booing him when he got the ball, and I was thinking, why are they? Who are these people who are booing him? Because I don't know of any. I speak to Burnley fans, and I don't know anybody who thinks he behaved badly in the.
No.
We sold him. we got an offer for him, and we accepted it, and you couldn't blame him for going. He's staying in the Premier League rather than coming down with us. What exactly did he do to deserve that bad reception? I
think he's just got that. He's just got that Chrissy Waddle gait about him, hasn't he? That if things aren't going well, it looks like he's a bit languid and a bit. When in that sort of situation Burnley were in, you need like blood and thunder, and put your body on the line.
That. It's exactly that, Chris. I think. Yeah.
He wasn't contributing with assists and goals, despite playing well, on occasion. But I see his form his form did dip, no doubt about that. But
he wasn't the only one though in that. That season, not at all. So, he'd say himself he was his own biggest critic. And you could see sometimes that he was so disappointed. But how many times did we turn to him? It must have been shattered, because at times he was our only creative outlet. You win the ball back, it goes to Dwight. Never mind, he's just been up and down the flank, chasing Alexander Arnold or whatever. Go again, son. Another crossing. Go again. Go again. The rest of it was like all compact and let's keep things tight. But that season, as good a talent Burnley Football Club produced since. I think you said Sam Trevor Stephen probably, isn't he?
Yeah. Woody, what do you think? What do you think? Sean Dyche going back to Turf Moor. Do you think there'll be any people who try and make a name for himself and give him some stick? Or
I think it could. If we hadn't quite had the week that we'd had, I would have been slightly more worried for Kompany. You could imagine people getting sarky and snarky, going, we want this bastard back here, You used to sack of shit. It could have turned into something like that. I think he's maybe earned a little bit more, a bit of a reprieve on that score. So I can't really see it being anything but, happy, clappy, everything all right. And then obviously somebody jumping out the bobload and lamping Sean Dyche when they go 2-1 up after 4 minutes.
I'll tell you what, it would be really interesting. There's another universe somewhere where Sean Dyche gets to spend £100 million at Burnley Football Club. I'd like to see what sort of team he'd put together.
I know, right?
It'd be very different, wouldn't it? It'd be really different.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Would it? He was obviously working under some fairly serious constraints, wasn't he? And would he have invested in young talent? Would he have spent 100 million on ready-made players, or what?
Let's say going by, he's brought Jack Harrison in on loan. That sort of type, that sort of workman-like with a bit of quality. But how many of those do you get to the 100 million? You probably get about 3, don't you, in this market?
Yeah.
I just remember when Cornet signed, and which was obviously a pace signing that was in the new era. Cornet, a kind of Kompany era signing, really, wasn't it, for Dyche? And the whole vibes of the way he talked about him was like, Yeah, well, we'll see what this lad can do. You know, there was no enthusiasm. I mean, I'm sure he was great with him on the training ground and everything, but you could tell that he's like, where does he play? He's a left winger who plays at left back, apparently. Well, he won't be playing left back in my team. You know, there was no sense that he thought, here we are, the purse strings have opened. I'm bringing in players from French league now. But so I think we would have seen, you know, players who are proven, who would do him a job for his main goal of keeping Burnley in the Premier League. There wouldn't have been much thinking beyond that.
Nathan Redmond would still come.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But he saw something in Cornet that this kid can make an impact off the front or as a, you know, through the middle. Yeah. And he's gone to West Ham, and it's, you know, by all accounts, they're, you know, 15 months after signing him, they're after getting shut. But at no stage, from my recollection, have West Ham used him in that role. You know, they signed Big Scamacca, like, you know, they like Antonio. He's used Bowen there, but he's played him primarily as a left winger. And you're thinking, well, what a season he had in a poor side as a forward. You know,
he had a free role, didn't he? He had a free role, really. But it's an interesting one. Is that I think we'd have signed Andros Townsend.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh hell yes.
Well, they were always surprised. I think Andros, I don't know if he still does, but at the time he had the same agent as Dwight McNeil. And I think that was, you know, they obviously very, very aware of Andros and his capabilities, and that, you know, had he been available, you know, this, that, and the other. But, yeah, definitely that type, isn't
he? Yeah. Right, before we wrap up, just a quick one. Me and Woody were at the MLS Cup final, which decides the league title, confusingly, in Columbus. Columbus Crew. Me and Woody had been to Columbus Crew games in the past at their old ground at a new stadium. Columbus Crew won it. They beat Los Angeles FC, played very well. We'll not go into all that. But Woody, as a new stadium, the capacity of that stadium is 20,800. It were at full stadium yesterday. So it's actually slightly smaller than Turf Moor. Now, we've had all these debates about atmosphere and so on. American press boxes are nearly always indoor behind the glass windows, but it's a new stadium, so the glass window was raised for kickoff time because it wasn't, so we could get the atmosphere in a bit. But Woody, what were your impressions as a fan in the crowd there of the atmosphere at that stadium and how it might contrast with the atmosphere we've talked about at the Turf?
It was fabulous. It was like a funky little cauldron. Imagine, if you will, Walsall back in the day, or pop into Scunthorpe, when they built that new ground, build it up a little bit more for about 20,000, impose it a little bit more for everybody and sit it on top of the ground, and then basically have a load of butt kickers, as in speakers, and power it through the concrete of everything, and so that all the noise comes through the floors, so you're feeling it in your guts, etc. And then you have a sound man trying to work on piping the away fans and the home fans together, and it kind of works. And it was a great atmosphere, and it was for 20,000 people. It was quite an occasion. It really was.
Did they have any flags?
Yes, tons of them, massive ones.
And we had a towel wave at the start. The whole ground started waving.
They do that in the NFL, don't they? They give I've still got a towel from when I went to see New York Giants a few years ago. But
I'll tell you what. I mean, I know a lot of us. I had to walk around the ground before kickoff. The home end, which is like the organised supporters section, which is a safe standing area. They've tried to make it like and they wear yellow and black, so they've tried to make it like a mini version of Dortmund's, really, haven't they? They've even given it it's even got a German name. It's called the Norddecker, and that was full 2 hours before kickoff. And I went round, and when the LA players came in, they had to walk to get to the dressing room. They had to walk right in front of this home end, which they obviously hadn't expected to be full 2 hours before kickoff. But they priced the beer stuff at a reasonable level, I believe. I didn't go and test the wares, obviously working and everything, but they
crafty pint.
But so the players had to walk in front of this packed home end and got a load of abuse. Giorgio Chiellini in probably his last game walking through. But the interesting thing was going there, and we sort of mock this American thing about having, you know, loads of food and drink and stuff like that. They had a beer garden behind the home end, and people were sat there eating like, you know, schnitzel, having a few beers, and that's why they'd gone there 2 hours before. The club will be making a load of money off that.
Yeah.
The fans were half tanked up by the time the game started. But it was a really good. It shows what you could do with a small stadium, I thought, you know. But you'd probably have to totally, you know, it's a new build.
The safe standing is key, isn't it? That's what's key to it, isn't it? It's like we said before, at Turf Moor, we've not had that sort of focal point of, you know, where all the people who want to make a lot of noise go since the long side went, haven't we? Since that sort of little top corner of the long side. That's where everybody
30 years. It's 30 years in 95 since it come down. Yeah.
That's God, 30 years. No, that can't be right. But we haven't had that sort of focal point, have we? That's what they need to develop. They need to develop a place where all the people who want to create that atmosphere can gather, and that energy then sort of begins to build and feed off each other, doesn't it? And we just, how do you do that? You know, I mean, they say they're going to bring the safe standing in before the end of this season. I don't know what the plans are. I don't know where they're going to put it. You know, they're going to have to upend some season ticket holders, I'm sure, to get, if they're going to do that, which is probably not the best idea, but that's where it's all going to come from, isn't it? Just getting that focal point where the lunatics go.
I would say to Alan Pace, and it sounds quite strange to say it to an American, especially an American who used to be like the owner or president of a Major League Soccer club, but in a very different era of MLS, it's become much bigger. That felt like I was at a Bundesliga game yesterday, to be honest. It was really, really proper football atmosphere. The crowd was different. It was, you know, but I would suggest to him that these new stadiums they've built one in Nashville as well. There's a 30,000 version of that Columbus Crew one. I would suggest he goes and has a look at some of these, because I think you could repurpose Turf Moor. You not knock it down and build one of these, but you could repurpose areas of Turf Moor to bring that kind of atmosphere where people get together, you know, better than a fan zone, better than a concession stand or whatever, and really do something with a safe standing area, like whether it's a cricket field stand or elsewhere. So, yeah, Mr. Pace, look back to your roots for some ideas, I think.
It seems very fashionable in a minute in the States. It's very hipsterish football. It's that the sort of perception.
There's a lot. It's changed. I mean, I was away back in England for 5 years. The level of football that they play. I mean, Columbus Crew played like the kind of football that Kompany wants Burnley to play. We're passing out from the back, very flex. You know, that old physical, quite boring style of MLS teams is sort of going out a bit. The quality of the football is better. The stadiums are better. The crowds are bigger. It's all on Apple TV, and it looks absolutely fantastic when you watch it on an Apple TV. It's really, really much better than it was even 5 years ago. But interesting times. Anyway, we're not an MLS podcast. There's enough of those around. we're a Burnley podcast, and we will be back on Friday to preview the Everton game. We'll try and put something special together for that one, given it is a special occasion with Sean Dyche back at Turf Moor. And until then, thanks very much for listening. Don't forget to follow us at Be All Podcast on socials. Leave us a 5-star rating on Apple or whichever podcast you use. And have a great week. And up the Clarets.